Welcome to the 6th annual Art Handlers Triathlon. I'm Laura Spalding Best, Exhibitions Manager here at Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art. Every year here at SMoCA, we take a time out to celebrate the heroes of the art world. We gather together in friendly competition to vie for the coveted Golden Level Trophy. The Art Handlers Triathlon, the Goodwill Games of the art handling world, the Preparators Olympics, celebrates the people who bring artwork to the public. We're called many things: preparator, art handler, art technician, exhibit designer, exhibitions manager, chief preparator. We answer to all these names. We wear white gloves, design museum and gallery displays, pack, unpack, patch, sand, paint, sweep, mop, demolish, hang art, fabricate, measure twice, and install everything. If you've ever wondered how art gets on the walls in an art museum or an art gallery or out in the public, it's us. It takes coordination with artists, curators, registrars, and all sorts of people. We're great collaborators, as well as being the proud weirdos lurking behind the scenes. Many of us are artists and creatives, and we find a natural home in this environment. We hold this event to shine a spotlight on this unique profession and take a moment to appreciate our colleagues. It might get a little ugly during competition, but I assure you there's a lot of love and respect in this event. We have a history of making traditions and breaking traditions in the triathlon, so it should come as no surprise that we found a way to get together during the pandemic without actually getting together during the pandemic. Past in-person events included the extended art hold, the thrift store salon hang, the blind conceptual art build, and the ever popular "How long is that line?" These events were no longer possible, so we had to come up with a new way to compete. This year's triathlon will represent both 2020 and 2021. There are still 3 main events, like any good triathlon, but this year they'll be in the form of questions. There'll be several bonus questions as well. I've invited preparators, art handlers, and art installers from around Arizona to represent themselves and their institutions. Some of them are relatively new to the field, and some of them have paved the way for the rest of us. They all work hard and deserve recognition and support. Good luck to all the worthy competitors. Let the games begin. One of the galleries was like just floor to ceiling salon hang every wall with these like massive, thick, like Baroque frames and like all these old paintings and stuff. And so they're like, well, we have to take it down for the sprinkler work. Like, we're going to clean everything. And so I got to like use the special vacuum and like dust off a Monet. And I was like, oh, like, I'm cleaning this painting right now. Yeah, that was really cool.
One thing that I have struggled with in this field is being a female in the field. You know, this is a mostly, for the most part, it's a male dominated world, and coming in as a woman and having to prove yourself in certain ways, I would like to see more women come join us.
When I was living in California, I was going to art school, and so my first taste of being a preparator was at the Laguna Art Museum in Laguna Beach, and so that just kind of stuck with me.
I do a whole variety of things. I do woodworking, electrical work, art handling, packing. I'll do whatever is needed to be done.
I think I started my first art handling job in 1993 or so when I was at Tyler School of Art in Philadelphia. That was kind of a match made in heaven. Was the guy hired me through one of my professors to go install painting 30 feet up a wall in Virginia. We drove down there, we got the painting hung, and we got back into the truck, and he said, okay, now we have to go hit all these like special new beer places because it's the early 90s and craft beer was just happening. And, you know, if I discovered that I can now install art and kind of travel around and drink beer, it was kind of a match made in heaven.
My official title is museum educator, but it's really a little bit of everything, from pre-pandemic facilitating field trips to running our Instagram account, to installing, to whatever needs to get done, basically.
We've been doing working independent contractors for museums and galleries for 15 years. And then before that, 7 years at SMoCA, and then 4 years at the Herd, for a grand total of, I can't do the math.
I've been in this position since just a little bit over 4 years.
How many years have you been in the arts?
In the
some
arts,
form?
on and off since 1999, when I was a docent in college. And I've been installing art on and off since 2008.
I know before, like, if something like is going to go wrong or a piece is going to fall, your instinct is maybe to catch it, but to know that like you are way more important than that art. And that's like, it's not that you don't know that, but it's something you easily forget when you're like in the mode of doing that work.
When like almost every opening, a member or a donor or some random person that has been to our shows before will ask like, so you do this for every exhibition? I'm like, yeah, we like strip everything bare down and build it back up, something new every time in 2 to 3 weeks. And then the sort of like look of amazement and also kind of a little bit of horror, you know, like, oh my God, that must have been insane. And then maybe like the fatigue they say on my face during the opening, because at that point I've not gotten any sleep. You know, you go right into like working super hard, then you're like, oh, drink a glass of wine and schmooze. You know, like it like ruins you a little bit.
We received a Simone Lee sculpture, one of them like massive bronze, sort of like the jug shape with the bust. And like, I just like, I don't know, I like follow her and I look at her work and like all of the like resources that she's always posting, and like she's just like so smart and so cool. And like we received it in the crate, we like opened the crate, I was like, oh my God. I was like totally freaking out. You have those moments where you're just like, oh my God, I'm doing this right now. Like
Installing a show of Robert Williams, and he had a solo show here, and you know, we actually were able to go to California and meet him, go to his house, meet his wife. You know, I got to see his Model T Fords and everything, and you know, he has his art, his work, you know, custom framed and everything. He designs the frames and all that, and so you know, he makes, the labels were huge. You know, the work is a shit ton of work. It was a lot of work, and so but you know, hung it, put the show together, and when him and his wife Suzanne came to the show, he, you know, he came to preview it, and he like walked in, he like looked around, and he was like, "You did a fine job." Like he was happy, and I'm just like, man, when you can make them happy, when you can make the artist happy, you know what I mean? So especially someone like that, you know, that really has just kicked a hole in the wall for so many artists to flourish. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, that was badass. That was awesome.
I am a huge Ken Price fan, and the first time I got to move that was kind of an amazing feeling, and I was astounded at how heavy it was. I didn't think it was going to be, and it was very special.
Like, I love Marina Abramovic, so when we had that huge piece of hers, oh my gosh, that was like, you know, a big thing. But then it's hard because it's like she's a performance artist, and that it's not the same because that's not like what she's known for, you know?
I've handled many objects that have left me humbled and in awe. Um, I personally handled wouldn't quite compare to an object that I witnessed being handled and installed, and that was it was as part of my current job here. It was a public art piece by Matthew Salinger of Collab Studio in Tempe, and it was a huge public art piece. 3 separate water jet metal cut. They're sort of like leaves, and they were like hoisted up by a crane, and then like all these guys with chains like directing it, and then like watching it being put down onto the Public Safety Training Center here in Chandler, and it was just like seeing all of the like drawings that I had come to life, and then seeing it get installed was just a really impressive thing. And it was also significant because it was in March of 2020, and it was like COVID was on the horizon but not here yet, and so it was like the last time that I was like seen that, been in that sort of situation. And so I'm really looking forward to being a part of that energy again soon.
Handling a piece of Ophelia poop and looking deep into it and seeing all of the orange glitter that he worked into that elephant dung. That's got to be it.
I worked with this artist named Alois Kronschleiger, and he flew from, I think, the Netherlands. I could be completely wrong. From Europe. That is correct. He's from Europe. And he came to install this huge piece, site-specific to the space, in which he created this giant sort of grid out of basically just like 2x2 lengths of wood that made it appear like this grid structure was crawling up through the roof and not through the face of the museum. And we had to it was labor intensive, but seeing it when we were done, like walking like across the street, having all the doors open and seeing this structure that we all put together was like the first time that I felt like I did something beyond like what I could do, like what I could really do. Like I didn't, when I saw it, I was like, yeah, the artist is, will do the whole thing and we just help them hang it up. But in those processes, you really are doing it side by side with the artist and figuring out things together and coming up with solutions.
But it was one of the pieces from the Frida and Diego show that when I finally got a glimpse, because at that point I was just kind of an assistant, I didn't get handed the checklist, but I got a glimpse of the checklist and seeing what was what. So I made sure that I was the one to pull that painting out of the crate. And also, after it got inspected, I made sure that I was available just to get that painting out of inspection onto the wall. And I remember it because it was a painting that I had studied in 6th grade or 7th grade, that there was some lesson on it. But it was a very cool moment to be, putting that on the wall and looking back over, I don't even know how many years that is, but that was a pretty cool one.
My very first artwork that I got to handle at Phoenix Art Museum, my first day as an intern, I have never touched a major, work of art or anything. And we get sent to crate up Frida Kahlo's The Suicide of Dorothy Hale. And that's already a very emotional piece, but to get to see it that close and, to be able to touch it and, to turn it around and see the back and see, the labels and everything, all the places that it's been, it just, it humbled me in that way. So not only is she one of the most well-known female artists, but I grew up in Mexico, so that's really close to my heart. I have been to the Casa Azul, the Frida Kahlo Museum. So, to piece it all together and to be so close to that, such an emotional piece, I think that did humble me.
The show that I worked on that was probably the most kind of significant for me was the Terrell show that we had when I was, just starting at SMoCA, and that was a show that was incredibly challenging, but very, very rewarding, and the kind of show where I would go down every day to the gallery and spend as much time as I could just in the galleries, looking at the work and watching other people look at the work, um, and that that experience and being able to live with that art for as long as I was able to live with that art was probably the most significant and humbling, in just that there was, it was so simple and clean, but yet so complicated in a lot of ways too. I mean, it was what the show consisted of versus what you experienced was it's just kind of incredible, and that certainly helped me kind of change my feeling about the potential possibilities of art in general, and kind of opened my mind and my eyes a lot to seeing kind of art in a different way. That's the kind of thing that you see your world differently after a show like that, and that's kind of humbling, I think.
The work that we do is often like invisible on purpose, like we were talking about before. And I think just like being a little more thoughtful and mindful to like the labor that goes into things that you don't see at like first glance.
To bring this random collection of skills that a preparator usually possesses together into one job is definitely my favorite part since I started, and I realized that these random things that I knew how to do came into work and into play into this one profession. I was like, oh, this is where I need to be. Just being able to make something. I think the making of things really brings happiness to me.
Having those little moments of getting all the stuff done behind the scenes, and somebody turns around and it's done, and they go like, oh, it looks so easy. I'm like, oh yeah, it's no problem. Like, so yeah, that's the little thing that I love. I love that behind the scenes bit, that you make it look so easy, but then I do this longer and I talk with people, even with like talking with my own parents or other coworkers, and I talk them through like every step that you do to make something look seamless. And they're like, I never had an idea about that. So yeah, it's fun little tricks like that. Plus, you get to see the backs of paintings. How cool is that?
The most satisfying thing was just working together with a bunch of other people to create an experience for the patrons of the museum, the people that would come in the museum, and the occasions where we got to work with artists was just a nice window into their personalities, and 95% of the time they were wonderful people to meet and work with, and that was very gratifying to work with those people and get a little bit of an insight into how their minds work and what's important to them, and so on. So, but certainly the teamwork aspect of working with the curator and graphic designer and the people on the crew, and working together to create this kind of thing. I feel like I've always been a better team player than someone who would go out there and just kind of genius something into existence. That's kind of not how that I kind of work.
I'm very like methodical and like addictive, and like my dad says collect them all, and like but sometimes collect them all means like just like putting everything in the exact right spot, and then when it's done it's just like you love it.
The most satisfying part of art handling is when you're doing, there's two things that I think about, is when you're doing like a large composition that needs to be maybe like a grid or something, and you do it perfectly on the first try. The second thing that I think of that's satisfying is when you're the one who comes up with a solution for how to do something and people finally listen to you and follow it and it goes perfectly, it goes so smoothly and everyone's safe, the art's safe, and it works like a charm.
I love challenge. I love not knowing how something's going to turn out, and then actually having it work is a very surprising and wonderful feeling. I mean, a lot of times we'll be doing something and you just kind of have a concept and you don't really know if it's actually going to work, and you just keep figuring it out until it does.
Like what suits me, or like how I think I fit well in this job, because I guess I'm a little like OCD, kind of a perfectionist, but also I like to multitask all the time, like everything. Like right now, I have my phone right there, just checking emails. No, I'm just kidding. It's right there. I'm not checking emails, but like I'm always doing like a bunch of things. So like prep work is perfect because you have to think about what's about to happen, what's happening now, and how it's gonna play in the end. And then you have a crew that you have to like make sure that they're always doing things. There's got to be a job, so you have to be ahead of the game. And I'm relatively suited to that because I'm so nitpicky about things. Laura knows what's up.
I like the problem solving, you know. I mean, that's pretty much what it is, It's just being able to do whatever it takes to get the work up. I mean, sometimes you'll be pissed because you'll get some work in and you're like, oh, this artist is pretty big time, and yet they won't take the time to put any hardware on their work. Like, it's annoying. You know what I mean? And so like on the fly, you got to go make a cleat or be like, okay, the artist just sent me this and they have no past install photos of anything, and they just here make it happen. And you're like, all right, I guess, So yeah, just trying to make it happen. And there's a lot of hemming and hawing and getting pissed and whatnot. But when you finally put that work up and you're like, yep, this looks good, hell yeah, I'm happy.
That like Christmas Day feeling, opening up a crate, specifically like a crate that from the outside you get excited because it looks fresh. Like maybe you're the first person to open the crate. It's like really well done and nice and pretty, not like a beat up cardboard box, but you're just like, ooh, and then you open it and there's like the layers of foam and you're just like, what's gonna be under here? That is like, ooh, and just again, like the crispness of the foam and just like, oh, ooh. And it's very like opening up a present, like attention to detail. So that, I guess that speaks to why I appreciate a really like well done crate or well packed, object. But I feel like, looking at something and, making sure it's level, or like, wait, are we gonna have all the labels like at the same exact height? Like that, oof, that's so nice to like look and see like that line that like into the horizon, all those like pieces that are on the wall or whatever.
Our Teotihuacan exhibit at Phoenix Art Museum, bringing all of those super large pieces, we had to use, again, forklifts and all kinds of devices to bring in sculptural pieces that were done hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And not only that, but figure a way to build a pedestal to support them. And, it was a great venture, but a quite enjoyable one. It was an honor to have all of that artwork being able to travel all the way here. And for me, it felt like a privilege to be able to be in contact just to be in contact with such pieces. So yes, we had a whole team of riggers, and we had all of us, and there were so many people in that exhibition, but it took a whole team to get it done, and it was a great experience.
We came up with the solution of taking a pedestal, cutting holes in it, putting the LEDs on the floor, and then covering the holes with parchment to kind of subdue the lights, putting that on top, and boom, sent a picture of the artist. He sent like a crying emoji. He was so excited, and we were super proud.
It was like the moving the stones for the pyramids. I mean, we had like 20 people, carrying it in, and it was kind of crazy. And then the ceilings were fabric. In two of the galleries, the fabric ceilings that were 60 feet by 30 feet, and they had to be stretched and pulled tight. And so I came up with these kind of large T-shaped structures that people would hold the cloth as we moved back from one end of the gallery to the other, and then people on both sides stapling the cloth into these nailers along the wall. But it was a crew of you had 12 or 15 people coordinating their efforts at the same time to do this thing that was kind of crazy. But and I remember right in the middle of it, I had to go pick up my son from daycare because daycare was closing, and I had to go get him. And so everybody, all 15 people, are just kind of standing there in the middle of the thing, holding up the fabric, waiting for me to come back from getting my son from daycare. But that was another one that you don't ever imagine having to do something until it comes up and someone says, hey, you got to do this. And it's like, okay, well, just stuff that I'd never seen before. Like a 12 by 12 foot square of pollen on the floor, just like, what? And the milk stone, do you remember the milk stone? Were you there? So it was basically a 6 by 6 foot piece of marble. And every morning Melissa would go out with 2 quarts of milk. It was white marble, and you would pour the milk on, and then the milk would go to the edge, and then the surface tension would hold the milk basically on this tabletop. It was slightly concave. So you filled this thing with milk, and it's this reflective surface that has this little bead of tension around it. But if you break the tension with your finger, all the milk runs off onto the floor. So you had to do it every morning. And then every night you had to mop up the old milk and throw that away, which was a drag. But and again, one of those things where, like, where else but in an art museum would you have to or get to do something like that?
As a manager of inanimate objects, thinking of like best ways to maximize space in a warehouse while keeping everything safe at the same time.
Is it mostly like thinking about like efficiency and spatial reasoning, that kind of thing, like when we're Tetrising stuff?
Yes, and like I've like built things. I've built platforms or talked through with other coworkers like different things we could build to store like specific works that we have lots of, like how to fabricate like a type of flat file that would work better for us, or like ways to like rearrange crates so they like take up the smallest footprint, because only have so much space, but there's infinite pieces of art that we have to store and take care of.
That phrase like overwhelmed me a little bit.
Collab Studio had designed this really large piece to go on the side of our public safety training center shade canopy, and it was so big that they couldn't install it. So there was a crane that was rented for install, and the crane people they were picking up the piece here, and so it was sort of tilting like this, and it was designed to be picked up here so it would tilt out more like this. And the first round, it was one of those things. They had to install 3, and installing the first one took like 2 hours, 3 hours, something like that, because it was, they picked it up and like tried all these things, and they had to put it back down and then pick it up here and get it right. And then installing the next 2 took like half an hour each. And it was like, I didn't really do anything except for get out of the way and know that the crane operators would eventually figure it out, because this was not their first rodeo, and it was not my spot to go in and tell them how to do their job.
So my brilliant idea, which is rather precarious, was that the 2 forklifts would go, so you have like this dumpster pool that's like a long cylinder, a container truck, go on each side, lift it up, and then the truck would drive underneath it, and then they would perfectly lower it onto the trailer. Then they could go, and everything's, yay, that was easy. Yeah, it wasn't that easy. We didn't finish until like 3 a.m. We had to go out into the street because our lot is on a slope, because it's basically a long driveway for the fire trucks. We didn't have permits to do that. We had our orange vests, and we were like, that way, rerouting traffic, totally have a permit for this. And at one point I was just, I guess this was also another odd moment. I was like directing each forklift person like to go up or down to keep the thing level by standing behind the truck and just sort of like doing this, maneuvers the whole time. That was by far the most challenging thing I've ever done, because the risk was so high.
We had these really awesome mounts that were designed, like they were really, really cool, really well made, very impressive. But like the way that they attach to the wall, it's just like a single point, and then it's like very cantilevered out. And it was for a fashion exhibit. So there was swimwear and like lingerie on these like invisible mounts that just float out of the wall. And it's very cool because you literally don't even notice it. And it's very impressive because like the understructure for the mount, like somebody had to literally like fabricate another garment, like basically like make the same pattern in black felt as just like an understructure for it. But so it just, we needed to like a 12 or 14 inch like extension, like Phillips head extension for the drill, but anything you can find that was that long like wouldn't actually fit in the diameter of the brass tube, and like neither would the heads of screws. Like we had to like grind down the heads off of screws, and like yeah. And then there was one that like it was on a wall that wasn't backed, and I think it just like got over tightened and it blew out. Like it was just spinning in there. And I had to like kind of jerry rig a butterfly situation that would like actually tighten it to the wall and give us enough like, like a good tight fit so that this thing could like cantilever out, even though there was like this hole there that was all stripped out. Yeah, so I had to find a smaller butterfly, and like I had to fit the thing, like I had to do it in a weird order, but it worked. And I was like, oh, cool, it worked. if you don't notice it, it means we have done our job well.
No, I took it off. I was like, I'm not at work. I took it off. No.
I always look to the person beside me and say, hey, give me your Leatherman, you know?
No, because I took it off when I came home. A tiny Allen wrench. How's that? First thing on my desk. Not very exciting.
No, I have one of my backpacks up.
Well, it's a knife, but does that count?
Well, I have to.
Moderate white. And like, I think we all know there's enough moderate whites around in the institutions. So yeah, yeah.
Accessible beige. I can't get past that. Inkwell. I like Inkwell. Not so much the name, but the color I really enjoy.
Heirloom china. And the reason why is because in my head, I turned that into Cheech Blue, because when we had a show with Cheech Marin's Chicano art collection, I picked this blue that I fell in love with, like everyone fell in love with. And so since then, it's been called Cheech Blue. And so I even got that color, and I have an accent wall at my house.
Well, my new favorite color is Cold Morning because I am now painting my house that, so I'll never know where I'm at. Could I be at home? Could I be at work?
Popcorn.
Pretty much any gallery white. Swiss coffee, foggy day.
Accessible beige.
I really like, this is probably a weird one. I really like machinist hammers, like the ball peen hammers. And like I feel like that wasn't just like it's just for patching. I have a thing that's like I really don't want to sand spackle. I really don't. So I have like rat holed a couple of special machinist hammers in different places where I like know they'll always be there and no one will move them.
A universal socket.
My tool cart, because I just recently modified it. There's kind of that lull that's right before install, when you have a bunch of installs coming up. And so you kind of use that time to either clean up the workshop, or you'll just add some shit to your cart to like make it on some Mad Max shit. You're like, put hooks on it for a level here, and you're gonna put this here, and you're gonna drill some holes into there to make sure you got all your So yeah, I made a pretty badass battle wagon.
I have my collection of odd objects around the building with tape and markings on them going, tool, important tool. They're usually things fabricated for a specific purpose, and I would feel lost if somebody had ever gotten rid of them.
I definitely have a favorite pair of gloves that I like to use.
Always having a bandana because it can do so many jobs in one. I use it to carry lots of hardware at once, like a little sack that you would make if you were traveling with a stick, or to wipe the sweat off your brow so you can see where you're carrying a piece of art.
My 20-volt max impact driver is my go-to. Everything. I use it for everything. Hammer, no. I treat my tools good.
Safety is sexy is a good one. Yeah, being safe is smart, and being smart is sexy. And safety is sexy.
I think this is going to be a good day. It has to be a daily mantra in the day, in a day in a preparator's life. We go through so many things. One minute you're doing something very delicate with gloved hands, pulling some artwork, and then next thing you're demolishing a wall. So it doesn't matter what the task is. We try to make the best of it. So yes, this is going to be a good day.
We're not roofing houses. We're not laying concrete. We're in air conditioning and we're putting shows up. It's awesome.
One of my favorites to myself is pay attention. When I find myself about to do something, just pay attention. And I'm like, okay. And it kind of focuses me because I tend to be thinking about multiple things at a time. And if I'm doing something that's crucial, that just kind of resets my thinking. The others are usually obscenities and things like that, so we can't go there.
There's one that I always go back to is a quick line of like, oh, it's nothing. Like, you want to move that? Oh, that's nothing. Like, we can do that. And it's an easy way of like, just like not necessarily dismissing their comment or request, but maybe qualifying it. And ultimately, like, it's not going to be a big deal. It's an extra, you know, hopefully it's only an extra hour or 2 days or something like that.
Done is better than perfect. But I think this concept of like leave it better than you found it, or send it better than you found it, is just something that is nice. And now that I'm saying it now, I'm like, oh, maybe that's what I should be thinking about when I'm like cleaning the kitchen or something like that, you know, for my husband. It's like, oh, okay, you didn't leave it for me in this condition, but I'm gonna leave it better for you.
We're not saving lives. That, like, as important as our job is, like, it's not curing cancer.
You make do with what you got. That's like the art handler like motto, oath, or whatever. Don't die, I think, is probably I say that a lot. Okay, go, don't die. Don't die. Don't stop standing on the top rail of that scissor lift. Don't die.
We deal with like physics and gravity and three-dimensional space and real objects every day, like all the time. And just like having that experience in like such a practical sense where like I have to make this work and it has to be safe and secure. Like, I don't know, it just really changes your perspective. If you go to art school, they don't teach you how to like, this is a 60 center, this is how to build a cheap crate. Like, you don't like learn that stuff. And these are skills that like not only would make you more self-sufficient, but also like help you get a job.
Sometimes people doubt you. Sometimes, you know, you go to do a pickup and people are like, oh, okay. And they just from assessing you at first glance, they doubt that you can do the job. You doubt that you can carry or lift something heavy. They doubt that you know what you're doing. They doubt, or they try to tell you how to use tools, things like that. So I would like to open an invitation for more women out there to, you know, join us to see that there is a career opportunity here.
With the things work out, other people get happy about it, and then, you know, the images that you take of it or something, you know, end up on social media, or you know, the artist sees it, the artist is happy about it, and yeah, it's great. It's just a chain reaction. You know what I mean?
You should work in a museum. And I said, yeah, right. And here I am.
In my shop and office, there's during installs, when they start to go long, there's usually a playlist that's going music. So I can take a break and say like, oh, I need to go back and get the Winston tool. And they're like, okay. And I can get like a couple 30 seconds of some song that will help kind of redirect my brain and keep me going. So there's always some sort of motivational motivational mix, usually some punk rock or something. Just here to put the stuff on the wall.
Because I feel like it's better than like pay it forward. Because it's not like, oh, someone was nice to you, so you're nice to them. It's like, no, even if you didn't send it to me that nicely, I'm still gonna go high and I'm going to do something that, better when it's my turn.
I had a group of people that were just really competent and good workers, and they always contributed a lot to the solutions that we came up with, because everyone had expertise. They were all sculpture students from ASU and artists, and so they all had a real world experience handling materials and art and weird situations. Well, and it's almost like caring for an animal. You develop a little bit of an affection for this thing that you have to look after.
Another thing that I'm better at now that I'm an art handler is making art, because I get to handle so much of it, or knowing how someone is going to look at my art when it's finished.
Like the first time I like realized like, oh, this career is amazing. I'm glad I went to school. I'm glad I followed through to stick with it, because it's like, I'm not doing a 9-to-5 thing. I'm like humbled by this like great opportunity to work with artists from all over the place all the time, different ones.
Sometimes your job is to get out of the way.
Yes, we'll do what we can, and we're gonna do the best that we can, and that's gonna be good.